We haven't had him on in almost a year. It was last February. Let's welcome back to the show State Representative Steve Weir. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, so let's get back to this striking state employees. What am I missing here? If you're on strike, you're on strike. If you're not collecting your check. And I guess what bothers me more, it's one thing if it's a private company that just says, well, yeah, of course, I don't know any private companies that would ever do this, that would offer their striking employees compensation, but whatever. But the fact that this is public, this is our tax dollars. Do you see this bill coming back up for a vote this year?
Well, we're in the minority, 2-1. So the concept has been raised. We'll be discussing it today at 2 p.m. in the Labor Committee meeting. Concept has been raised. It's coming back. Last year we brought this up. I was challenged, and people said, oh, "Steve, this can't be. This is a joke. This isn't serious." I said, "No, it is serious," and it actually did come up in a watered-down version on the House floor as a nod to the unions. All the details, the guts were cut out of the bill, but there was a proposal to put, I think it was $3 million into an account for low-income workers. That was the title. With very little details, it was a nod. The governor ultimately vetoed it. But yeah, it's coming back with the details this year. And, to me, Gary, I think we differ maybe a little bit in that, I don't care whether it's public or private industry. At the end of the day, the funds going into that are proposed to pay for this are coming out of unemployment insurance compensation, which we all pay into. Small business.
No, we agree. So, we agree wholeheartedly.
So private or public, this is public money that goes into the unemployment compensation fund. So it's not the job of the legislature. We certainly believe in the ability for people to collectively bargain and organize. Don't dispute that at all. I just don't think the government and the legislature has any business getting in the middle of labor and management and a union dispute. That is what the union is for, is to represent the employees. Government doesn't need to step in, take a side, and tip the scales.
You said it's a watered down version, and I know what that means. It's making a bad bill a little less bad, but it's still our money. $3 million, whatever. It's $3 million, and it's only going to go to low income. Regardless, I don't care who it goes to. If you're on the picket line striking, then you're on the picket line striking. You're not collecting a check.
Yeah,
it's still our money. I don't care if it's $3 million or $3.
Yeah, well, I think I need to clarify is that the bill came through the committee last year with all the details, with all the nitty-gritty details that talked about it was going to be in support of striking workers. And at the end, that didn't get a call on the House. What they did was they created another bill. There was a dummy bill, and they put basically a bill with very few lines in it. There was no detail other than setting aside this $3 million, and it was this concept of the striking workers bill without language hidden in this other bill that came for a vote on the floor, which was the Democrats voted for it, both chambers. Republicans voted against it, and ultimately the governor, to his credit, vetoed it because that's he knew what it was about. So it didn't pass. We need to bring this to I think the public needs to know what's going on. There's so many people, a lot of time when they find out about bills and laws, they're after they're passed, and they say, geez, all of a sudden I've lost this right, or, when did this law pass? And I think it's our job to get you're doing your part, bringing this and highlighting this, and the listeners need to pay attention and know that they can testify, they can contact their representative or senator, they can be involved, call the governor, and let us all know what they think about certain concepts in support or opposition. I'm a big advocate for people getting involved, and I just think too many people don't pay attention. They assume we have their best interest in mind up there, and I can assure you that most of the people up there do not have the best interests of their constituents in mind.
To that point, are there what other types of issues does your this committee, the Labor Committee, handle? Like, what were some of the bills last year that were not brought up, but we might see this year?
Yeah, and I heard in your introduction, you talked about some of the what does the committee have cognizance over? It's labor issues. There are OSHA type things, and so I can say that wholeheartely I'm in support of. Well, first and foremost, always trying to keep it simple and not have government overstep. That's I found in my 2 years up there, now entering my third year, that laws are passed, and then we realize, wait a minute, we didn't think of this. So I like to proceed cautiously and beware of unintended consequences. That's my first priority. Second is that I'm wholeheartedly in support of worker safety, worker protection, making sure that when a worker goes, provides an honest day's labor, that they're getting in return. So we've identified issues like, wage theft, where employers, have taken advantage of employees. We want to make sure that the loopholes are closed there. Last year we saw, so to your point, that's the cognizance, and I'm fully in support of making sure that workers have protection. What I don't agree with is the legislature stepping in and tipping the scales. So last year we saw SB 221. I don't know if this is coming back this year, but it looked to eliminate the tipped minimum wage for servers.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yep, and so we had overwhelming testimony from servers who, some of them are making $28-30 an hour, and this would bring them back to $15.69 and now $16. And we felt, my Republican colleagues and I felt, that's going to confuse. It's going to lower the tipping, and ultimately, you're going to take the top performers. They're not going to get paid as much. You're going to bring the bottom performers up a little bit, and it's going to be bad for the industry. The details were it's going to raise the cost of a meal 133% right out of the gate. Just by raising those labor costs. So it's detrimental to businesses.
You see that bill coming back?
It's not on the list yet, but I can say that there's support for it in certain states around the country. California, typical, Oregon. So it may, since we seem to follow everything that they do, we may see it again. I don't know. It has hit some roadblocks. Washington, D.C., they enacted a similar version of increasing the tip minimum wage, and restaurants are going out of business there left and right. My wife and I were down in Washington, D.C. Friday night into Saturday. We were driving by restaurants that you'd think would be packed on a Friday night, and they weren't. So it's having a detrimental effect where it's been enacted. So I'm hopeful it won't come back here this year.
So yeah, again, case in point, I started the show off with this: liberal policy just does not work. I guess the State Representative Steve Weir, who's also the ranking member of the Labor Committee. Do I remember? Here's when I remember. I think you guys, this would be under the purview of the Labor Committee. Uber and Lyft drivers, right? They're mandating certain benefits for drivers.
Yep. Yeah, that was a bill proposed the first 2 years. I don't, again, we're just very early into the session, so I haven't seen that topic come back. But what essentially, just for your listeners, everybody, I think at this point is familiar with those two companies and that concept. And what people may not be familiar with is the fact that those drivers are, they're freelancers. They're independent contractors who can pick up a gig, as they call it, when it's convenient for them. They're not on the payroll of Uber and Lyft, and they can, refuse work. They can take work, and it's convenient for everybody. And so there was an effort to try to mandate kind of a minimum wage, which would have, I think, it'd be a push towards making them employees with benefits. And that's just not how it works. The independent contractors, if you think of a roofer, or they enjoy a certain amount of latitude and freedom and jobs they're going to take in scheduling, and the same applies to the Uber and Lyft. So they were asking for the proponents were asking for information from Uber and Lyft, such as how much are you charging the rider, and what are the fees you're collecting, and what's the profit. And to me, that had no bearing on what is the driver earning? That's really the information that's important to me. But as it turns out, Uber and Lyft were already providing that information, and it was already available. So I'm not sure if that's going to come back. What the proponents were asking for, turns out it was already, most of that information was already available to them. So we will see. But the concept, again, I really disagree with our legislature meddling in a private contract between two parties. The drivers should be able to advocate for themselves, and if Uber and Lyft aren't paying enough, the drivers aren't going to take the jobs, and
that's right.
Prices are going to go up. That's just how the market works. One of the other bills that we saw that I think will come back was the retirement security program.
Which one is that?
My CT savings. I don't have the bill number offhand.
No. But what does it do? What does it do?
It basically, the comptroller was looking to expand his authority. There's for small businesses who don't offer a retirement plan. You figure think about your 1 or 2 or 3 person operation who may not have a retirement plan in place because they can be expensive and burdensome to operate. And so for those employees in those small companies, maybe a landscaper or a snowplow guy or whatever, the comptroller wants to have a program available and does have a program available for these small businesses. The issue that I take with it is that it's an opt-out. So the employers are required by statute to give their census if they don't offer a retirement plan, they're required to give their census to the comptroller, and the employees, if they're not aware of it, are automatically enrolled, and then they have to opt out. And so I have an issue with that because you've got employees who, they may be, everybody agrees that saving money is a good thing. It's going to get you ahead in the long run, but some of these people are just trying to make ends meet each week. And so to be automatically enrolled in a program where the comptroller can determine how much money up to 10% of their paycheck is going to come out, and where the money is going to be put in terms of allocation for investments. It's not a well set up system. So, I would prefer to see an opt-in where the employees have this available to them, but they're not automatically enrolled. So those discussions will begin this year. But that bill was run on the last day of session and it failed. They ended up pulling the bill due to opposition. I had a lot of questions on the bill.
It does. What do you think? What do you foresee? What do you foresee as being contentious this session in the Labor Committee?
Well, I think a lot of the bills that come through, there is some bipartisan support. I'm looking at the docket today. There was an act about state marshals' health benefits, adding wage and hour investigators at the Labor Department. Those things are bipartisan support. We want the Labor Department to be able to conduct investigations with adequate manpower to make sure that employees are being protected, and employers who are, maybe underpaying or skirting the law, that they're held accountable. The contentious items, and we've talked about a few this morning, there are more which will come, I'm sure, are the ones that tip the scales, that inject the legislature and create laws that are punitive to one side or the other. And it's usually the business owner and the management is usually how these bills are, where the punitive side lies. And I want our environment in Connecticut to be one that's encouraging for business owners and people to invest and come in with their capital and create businesses. And a lot of these policies just discourage investment, which is why Connecticut is 46th or 47th in terms of economic prosperity and economic climate year after year after year, because the people in control here don't understand what it takes to encourage capital